Hello, world, and welcome to the In My Footsteps podcast. I am Christopher Sutherland, coming to you from the vacation destination known as Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and this is episode 244. As the late, great Biz Markie would say, it's spring again. To the girls and boys and people above, this is the time to fall in love. At least it feels like spring finally. But what's always blooming is a fresh batch of GenX nostalgia. We're gonna kick it off with a look back at the dawning of the craze of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Heroes in the half shell, and one of the things I could actually draw in 5th grade. We're gonna go way back in the day and explore the fever dream of just what in the world was Gumby and his friend Pokey. I will try to hold it together with a brand new top 5 that are the funniest weekly world news stories. This is going to be the first part of probably many. And there's going to be a brand new This Week in History and Time Capsule looking back at the introduction of the dance called the waltz and the controversy that came around it. All of that is coming up right now on episode 244 of the In My Footsteps podcast. I bet you didn't think this show would start off with a nearing 50-year-old white guy from Cape Cod putting down some dope lyrics from 1989. Yes, Biz Markie, spring again. I got the idea. I was out for a walk and I said, it finally feels like spring again. And I heard the song in my head, so I played it on Spotify. Welcome into my wacky and wild podcast, 244 episodes deep of GenX nostalgia. I was born in 1977. I am a younger Gen Xer, also known as a Zennial, because I kind of get close to that line with the millennials. I hope it feels like spring again wherever you are. I will do my best to enhance the spring if it's great where you are, or distract you from bad weather. Before we get into an hour of trips down memory lane, I can't start off the podcast proper without thanking my Patreon backers. Thank you so much to Laurie, Mary Lou, Ashley, Kevin, Leo, Marguerite, Neglectoid, Crystal, Matt, Dr. Shrimp Porto Chico. They are my biggest fans. They are the ones who literally put their money where their mouth is to support me, my content, my never-ending dream of being a full-time self-employed content creator. Of course, you can become a Patreon member for $5 a month. The link is in the podcast notes. You get access to a lot of bonus content, members-only podcast, early access to the Hidden Track podcast, remastered without a map live streams. Currently, members have access to the When Henry Met Henry short film that I co-produced with Frank Durant. At some point later in the summer, it will be up for everyone to view. But while we are still entering it into film festivals, I'm keeping the access to it kind of limited. People that are Patreon members, people who actually donated to get the film made. Also, be on the lookout for the first podcast edition of 1996 Changed Everything. I'm doing a series of articles about that year because I graduated high school in 96. It's 30 years ago. Oh, God. But I'm doing podcast versions of the articles that are going to be up on Patreon. The first one about the rise of the internet is going up later this month, the end of May. I've got more stuff to get into in terms of Patreon, in terms of events for my books coming up, but we'll save that to the end because it's time to get some energy going, crack one open, just like we're going to crack open the Heroes in the Half Shell. So let's start off episode 244 with a look back at the wacky idea that turned into one of the biggest pop culture trends for 80s and 90s kids, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Quirky, unusual, a mashup of several weird, unrelated topics. Heroes in the Half Shell, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it's a fascinating success story in modern pop culture. It's like someone threw darts at the dictionary and found 4 totally unrelated words and decided to make them into characters. And what's amazing is we're looking at over 40 years that Leonardo, Raphael, Donatello, and Michelangelo have been a part of the pop culture landscape. First in comic books and then everywhere. TV, movies, toys, video games. I am old enough that I remember the Ninja Turtles before they had their first movie. I honestly actually knew of them first from their comic book days. That was mostly because I had friends that could draw the Ninja Turtles. I cannot remember if it was my old friend Barry, he'll have to let me know, or if there might have been another kid that could draw them and I copied it so I could draw the Ninja Turtles from the comic books. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were created by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird in 1983. The idea started almost as a joke. Eastman sketched a turtle standing upright with nunchucks, and the absurdity of a slow reptile acting like a ninja made them laugh. They expanded the concept into a team of 4 turtles, each with different weapons and personalities. The name Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles itself was a parody of popular comic trends at the time. You had teenage, like teen superhero teams, mutant, which was inspired by the X-Men, ninja, which reflected the 1980s ninja craze, and the Turtles were named after Renaissance-era artists. When you think about where the Ninja Turtles are now, it's amazing to think that they started as a joke, as a parody. To publish their idea, Eastman and Laird founded Mirage Studios in 1983, so named because it wasn't really a full studio yet. They used a tax refund and a small loan to print 3,000 copies of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1 in May 1984, 42 years ago this month. Those 3,000 copies quickly sold out. The difference is that unlike the kid-friendly image that most people know today of the Ninja Turtles, the original comics were way different. Black and white, violent and gritty, inspired by darker comics like Daredevil and Ronin. I think this is why I thought they were cool and that the people that read the comics were cool. Yeah, they were turtles, but they were kick-ass turtles. Their backstory was that the turtles were mutated by radioactive ooze. They were trained by their rat sensei named Splinter. They battled the evil ninja clan called the Foot. Even these things spoofed existing comics. The Foot was a parody of Marvel's Hand. The idea was initially intended as a one-shot, but the comic's popularity forced Eastman and Laird to continue the series, expanding it into a longer narrative universe. In 1987, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles went from a cult hit to a mainstream explosion. The television show in 1987 radically changed the tone of the Ninja Turtles from the comics. This is where you had the turtles become colorful and distinct with their different bandana colors. Raphael was red, Michelangelo was orange, Donatello was purple, and Leonardo was blue. It was made way more accessible for kids, adding humor and the catchphrases like cowabunga. Their love of pizza was introduced. The violence was softened. All those things seem like negatives, at least probably to the people that started by reading the comics, but honestly, it transformed the Ninja Turtles from underground into global phenomenon. This is the era of what most people think of with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the cartoon of the late 80s. The late 80s and early 90s saw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles become one of the biggest merchandising juggernauts ever. Action figures, lunchboxes, clothing, school supplies, video games, comic spin-offs. My brother was 6, 7 years old when the Ninja Turtles really took off. He wanted all of their toys, all clothing, night clothing, lunchboxes, all of it. He was head to toe Ninja Turtles. It was easy to see why, because there was a synergy between the TV cartoons and the toys, the comics. So if you happened to catch a glimpse of the Ninja Turtles with one of those things, you would be able to find this whole universe. And it helped the Ninja Turtles rival giants like Star Wars in terms of cultural reach. You may think that sounds ridiculous, but think about it. Ninja Turtles had movies, TV shows, comics, toys. Star Wars had movies and toys. So in some ways, the Ninja Turtles' reach was greater than Star Wars. I remember around this same time in 1989, there was a Ninja Turtles arcade game released by Konami. This game was awesome. I mean, most arcade games were far higher in quality than the home console counterparts. But when I would go to any of the arcades that were near me, back when there were a bunch of arcades, it was one of the games that I sought out. In 1990, the Ninja Turtles made the leap to the big screen with the live-action film Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is where they were kind of in those rubbery suits, which they were fine for the time, but they were definitely a little bit hokey. It was a little bit of everything. It combined the darker comic elements with the humor of the cartoon, and it became one of the highest-grossing independent films ever at the time. It made $202 million at the box office on a budget of just over $13 million. That comes out to about $510 million when adjusted for inflation to 2026. The movie was very popular with kids. It was not that well received by critics, but that didn't matter. It made over $200 million. It spawned sequels in 91 and 93, with the second Ninja Turtles movie having that terrible Vanilla Ice ninja rap song. As big as the Ninja Turtles were in the early 90s, within a few years, interest began to fade. This was a lot due to oversaturation of merchandise, declining quality in the sequel movies and the TV shows, and just changing pop culture trends. Despite them losing popularity in the later 90s, if you bought any of those toys, specifically those plastic ones through Playmates, the original ones, if you've got any in their boxes, you can get over $100 on eBay for some of them. Granted, they have to be in the box, graded, perfect condition, but still, there's some value. Go check your attic, you never know. Because the Ninja Turtles once made loads of money, there were tons of revivals, reinventions. There was a 2003 animated series that was more faithful to the darker comics. This actually helped to revive the credibility with older fans who thought the cartoon and making it more G-rated got away from the original intention of the comic books. Nickelodeon had a CGI series in 2012. There was a reboot of the comics by IDW from 2011 to now. The Ninja Turtles franchise was purchased in 2009 by Viacom, who's the parent company of Nickelodeon. This led to new shows, movies, expanded merchandise. Even through the mid-2020s, the Ninja Turtles are still around with various projects. Live action and CG hybrid films, the reboot film Mutant Mayhem in 2023, new comic storylines. I realize in doing this segment, I'm kind of speedrunning the whole story of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and that's kind of the point. I'm trying to give you an overview of the whole property. In the future, if you want, I can do a segment on just the original comics, the cartoons, the movies. This is one of those things that it's hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have been around for over 40 years. They're one of the most recognizable fictional teams in the world. They became a symbol of 80s and 90s pop culture. I can remember them in 4th grade, sketching their faces. I still don't remember who it was in class that could draw them. It was probably Barry. He's an excellent artist, so it had to be him. Fun fact about Barry, to embarrass him, or embarrass me more, he had such excellent handwriting that I would practice writing his name in his handwriting, which then would make me better at writing my own name in cursive. You know, like back when you used to learn cursive. That just shows that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are a rare franchise that successfully spanned generations. There are kids today that love the Ninja Turtles. There are people older than me that grew up with them. You could have people that were going on 60 years old that were teenagers when the Ninja Turtles comics came out. Their appeal lies in the unique mix of humor and action, brotherhood and teamwork, and the constant reinvention. Without having to put too much thought into it, I can picture 3 different versions of the Ninja Turtles. They have succeeded for more than 4 decades due to several things. The flexibility of the tone, which makes some of their adventures accessible to kids, others that are more for adults. Strong character identities, especially with the cartoons. You knew every Ninja Turtle's colors, their weapons. Plus, like I always say, nostalgia is a powerful thing. If you used to read the Ninja Turtles comics in the mid-'80s, and now you're in your 50s, why not check them out again? They began as a late-night joke between 2 struggling artists and became a billion-dollar franchise. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are a rare example of a concept that can be endlessly reinterpreted, dark or funny, serious or silly, and still resonate with audiences today. So raise a slice of pizza to your heroes in the half shell that made their first appearance 42 years ago this month. This week in history, we are going back 214 years to May 11th, 1812, and the introduction of the dance known as the waltz. As I said at the beginning of the podcast, this dance created some controversy, and we're going to get into it. The waltz originated in German-speaking regions of Central Europe, evolving from folk dances like the Landler. I hope I'm saying that right. Unlike the highly structured court dances of the aristocracy, such as the minuet, the waltz emphasized continuous spinning motion, a closed hold, which was partners physically touching, independent couples moving freely around the room. This was a dramatic shift where traditional dances were performed in groups, carefully choreographed, designed to reinforce hierarchy and decorum. By contrast, the waltz was intimate, fluid, and most importantly, private within a public setting. It was around the time of 1812 that the waltz began entering elite English ballrooms, and this is where it triggered controversy. There were concerns about social reputation, there was strictness about gender roles and courtship, and it was governed by rigid codes of etiquette. So institutions like Almack's assembly rooms initially restricted or controlled who could perform the waltz, especially for unmarried women. By 1813, observers reported that no social event had caused such a sensation as the introduction of the waltz into English high society. Think about whatever dance craze you think was the most controversial ever. The tango, lambada, twerking. None of it comes close to the waltz. So why was the waltz seen as disgusting and immoral in the early 1800s? The biggest one was physical contact between partners. You touched someone and it was so controversial. The man placed his arm around the woman's waist. Their bodies remained in close contact for the entire dance. It's incredible. 200 years ago, this level of contact between unmarried individuals in public was considered scandalous. It was described by critics at the time as indecent and shameless. The waltz was. Just imagine if you dropped these people into society today with the dances that go on. They'd all be fanning themselves with their handkerchiefs as they fell over. The dance was also considered sensual. Couples revolved together in a near embrace. Movements appeared fluid, almost hypnotic. Some people argued that the continuous spinning in this dance could overstimulate emotions, cause loss of self-control, and encourage romantic feelings. Keep in mind, this is the waltz. The fact that the waltz focused on individual couples instead of community and social order It raised fears that couples could form private emotional connections. Social supervision was reduced, like it's a bunch of 5-year-olds. Honestly, it's like kids on the playground in a preschool have more freedom today than people back then did when they were doing the waltz. Besides the stupid moral objections, there was actually some objections framed as medical concerns, so they're desperate here. People said rapid spinning would harm the brain or nerves, dizziness was believed to make women vulnerable, overexertion in crowded ballrooms was blamed for illness. It is basically what you would expect. Older people that don't understand what younger people are doing and finding any reason they can to try to shut it down. We've all done something that our parents thought was dumb. Same with our parents doing things that the grandparents thought were dumb. It's the same back then. But despite the backlash, the waltz could not be stopped. Royal endorsement, especially after 1816, was a big turning point. Younger generations kept doing the dance, which gradually normalized it. The outrage over the introduction of the waltz wasn't really about the dance alone. It's like I just mentioned, it was changing social norms. It's like these people don't understand. The quickest way to make something that young people like seem uncool is to do it yourself. You want to stop that stupid 6-7 crap? Go out there and do it in front of your kids and just say it. They'll stop doing it. That highly controversial dance known as the waltz was introduced to mainstream society 214 years ago this week in history. Now let's waltz on over to a brand new time capsule. For this, we're going back 35 years ago this week to May 11th, 1991. The most controversial dance was the electric slide, mainly how I couldn't do it right, maybe the Running Man or the Cabbage Patch. Besides me being terrible at dancing, what else was going on in the world of pop culture back then? Well, let's find out. The number one song was Joyride by Roxette. Hello, you fool, I love you. I did not try that pickup line in 6th grade. This was the lead single off of Roxette's album Joyride. It was their final number one single on the Billboard Hot 100. They had 4 in total. They also had The Look, Listen to Your Heart, and It Must Have Been Love. This was the final big hit album for Roxette, selling more than 11 million copies worldwide since its release. They were one of those acts in the late 80s, early 90s that was really, really big and then was just gone. The number one movie was FX2, and you could get into the theater with a ticket costing $4.21. This is an action thriller movie starring Brian Dennehy and Brian Brown, where a movie special effects expert teams up with his old friend who's a cop to help catch an elusive killer. The movie was not a big hit, even though it went to number one. It made just over $20 million on a budget of $18 million, which basically means it lost money. It's only 38% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, which is a huge drop from the original FX movie from 1986, which is 89% fresh. The number one TV show was L.A. Law. This was a massive hit starring Susan Dey, Blair Underwood, Corbin Burnson, Jimmy Smits. It was on for a total of 8 seasons and 172 episodes from 1986 to 1994. In total, L.A. Law would win 15 Emmy Awards, including Outstanding Drama Series 4 times. And if you were around back then, May 11th, 1991, maybe you want to hunker down and watch some LA Law, but you've noticed your bed is not comfortable. Well, don't worry. You can get yourself what was the style of the times in the 80s, early 90s, a nice waterbed from Wholesale Waterbeds. Their ad says they want to get into your bedroom. There's a good pickup line. You could get a twin-sized waterbed, which I didn't know they made. Although it says unfinished, but it's $99. I don't know if it means you got to put it together like IKEA. Contemporary oak panel headboard, $2.99 for king or queen, but drawers are extra on the headboard. A 2-tier bookcase waterbed headboard, $2.99. Includes lamp, mirror, which could fall on you when you're asleep. That's not in the ad. I'll never forget my old friend Matt Medeiros. He had a waterbed. There would be sometimes I'd sleep over his house and I'd prefer to sleep on the floor. There you go. Get yourself a nice early 90s retro waterbed to watch LA Law. And that'll wrap up another time capsule, another This Week in History. Oh boy, it's going to be laughs abound here with a new top 5. I'm already laughing. So let's get into the top 5 funniest weekly world news stories. I'm sure all of these are 100% true, so let's check them out. I tell you, the life of a GenX podcaster sure is hard. I had to sit down and look through dozens, more than many dozens, issues of weekly world news to try to find the funniest stories. I know, don't you feel bad for me that I had to do that? I've already come to the conclusion that there's going to be more than one part to this because there were way too many funny stories. I could basically pick anything. Just some of them were so stupid. I always appreciated it because it was ideas that were so dumb that I thought me and my friends could have come up with stuff better. For those who have no idea what I'm talking about, Weekly World News was the most foolish tabloid newspaper ever made. It was around originally from 1979 to 2007. It is still around, I guess, today digitally. You can go to weeklyworldnews.com. I will link to it in the podcast notes. Their whole claim to fame was just finding the stupidest ideas, typically revolving around like aliens talking to the president or people who were supposed to be dead that were really alive, Bigfoot. But I'm giving away some of my entries here. If you want an overview of Weekly World News, the whole magazine itself, I did one in episode 169. And I had said in that segment that there would be more Weekly World News content to come, and here we are. As with most of these top 5s, they are in no particular order. And obviously I've got several honorable mentions. One of the best parts about this segment is you can go find all of these issues online. Google Books. I will include the link that I used for my research. It's got easily a couple of 100 issues from all different years that you can go and read the whole things online. But before you go do that, let's start with the honorable mentions for the funniest Weekly World News stories. They include a kitten being guilty of murder. This was from August 2005, and the cat was on death row. And there's a picture where it says you have to sign the petition to save Fluffy's life. It shows a hand with the needle like Lethal Injection and a cat strapped down. It's like ridiculous. Another honorable mention is the woman who weighed 3,000 pounds. This is from April 2000. Her claim to fame is that she weighs more than a Buick. It says she's from Kentucky, and it gives her diet of what she eats every day. Would you like to know? She eats 9 T-bone steaks, 12 baked chickens, 15 hot dogs, 10 large pizzas, 7 pounds of bacon, 15 large pies, and then it says, and much more. Oh my God. And there's a picture of someone on there. Obviously, it's been edited, but I wonder who the real woman was, where they're like, we're going to take your photo and make you 3,000 pounds. Another honorable mention is the man that was born with only one hand and one foot. And I mean, that's it. The picture of him, and it's like his head, and he's got a shirt, and it's just one hand and then a foot coming out of the bottom of the shirt. This is from December 1992. I just looked at the photo again. I'm sorry. He wasn't wearing a shirt. It was shorts. And the waistband is around his shoulders. The story says that he plays basketball and drives his own car. Like, how the hell do you drive a car with one hand and 1 foot? In total, he's like 1.5 feet tall. It just reminds me of the Seinfeld episode where George talks about the guy for the Yankees that has no arms and got more work done than him, and he drives his own car, and Jerry says he drove a car with no arms. It's like this guy drove a car with one hand and 1 foot. Oh man, we're only in the honorable mentions, and I'm just going on and on. I'm sorry. I'm having too much fun laughing. Another honorable mention is the 130-year-old man getting married. This one is the 130-year-old man's bride is 37, and he says he wants lots of babies, which, ugh. The best part is that the guy's son, who is 90, says his dad's a fool. By the way, in case you wanted to be more further grossed out, the record for the largest age gap between husband and wife getting married is 63 years. Gertrude Grubb in 1927 was 18 when she married John Janeway, who was 81. That's just awful. Ugh. That would mean that if that was happening with me, it'd be 15 years from now my bride would be born. God. Ugh. And that's real. That's not Weekly World News. Anyway, there's one more honorable mention, and that is a farmer shooting a 23-pound grasshopper. This one is from April 1991, and I distinctly remember reading this at my Nana's house, with this farmer standing on the cover with a grasshopper that's 4 feet long, saying that the damn thing ate an acre of his crops. The best part was that in some continuity, in a later issue, that farmer was found dead with suspicious bite marks in his neck. Like other big grasshoppers came and got revenge. Oh, goodness gracious. That was the longest honorable mentions ever with this, because they're all just so funny. Are you ready for the actual top 5? Oh boy, I know I am. So let's start off with number 1, and it had to be in here, Bat Boy. This might be the most iconic cover or the story ever in Weekly World News. Bat Child found in cave. This is from June 1992. The story says that explorers found this 2-foot-tall bat child 2 miles underground. Scientists, quote-unquote, say his ears are better than radar and his eyes can see in the dark. You can go on Amazon and get yourself a poster of the original cover, and they show a picture of it, what it would look like on your wall. In total, because Weekly World News knew they had a winner on their hands, Bat Boy was on the cover of their magazine somewhere between 35 and 40 times. They included Bat Boy escaping, him getting captured again, him leading police on a high-speed chase. It's basically every issue would be him getting captured or escaping again. One time he joins the army, and it's the same picture every time of this disgusting humanoid face, mouth wide open with rows of sharp teeth and big pointy ears. If you know nothing of Weekly World News, I guarantee you know Bat Boy. Number 2 is a man who fries eggs on his bald head. This one seems almost plausible. I mean, I guess not. If your surface of your bald head is like 300 degrees, you might be dead. This is from July 1990. The best part with a lot of these is that the people have real names and real places where they live. So this dude is supposed to be from Maryland. He's 36 years old. Jonathan Arlene. There's a picture of him with like this broiler pan like around his head, and his wife is cracking an egg on his head. It said his head gets up to 125 degrees without brain damage. And he also cooks bacon and pancakes on his head. You imagine making a restaurant with that guy? He just like comes to your table and he's just making pancakes on his head for you. Oh boy, it gets even better though. Number 3 is I Married Bigfoot. No, not me. The story in Weekly World News. This is from February 1995, and it says the woman says she married Bigfoot because he's the father of her child. We have a picture of this woman. Her name is supposed to be Katie Martin, And she's sitting with her half human, half Bigfoot son named Kelly. He's got overalls on, but he's just got this furry face. This woman talks about having an intimate encounter with Bigfoot, and there's a picture of Bigfoot that just looks like, looks like Iggy Pop. That's supposed to be Bigfoot, but they're in love, don't worry. But now we end with two different ones that had me rolling laughing just looking at the pictures. We'll start with number 4, a horse born with a human face. This is from August 1998, and it really is what you think. It is like terrible CGI AI gone wrong. It's this picture of just a horse with a human face. I don't know how else to describe it. The story is supposed to be it's these rogue scientists that years earlier created a horse with a human head. Now it's a horse with a human face, like they're just doubling down on their experiments. They have this full photo of the horse. The name is Magnificent Manny. And of course people are saying it's an abomination. It is. It's stuff of nightmares if you're not ready for it. I tried to find out what happened in the chronology of Weekly World News to the horse with a human face, but I couldn't. You can try to find it through Google Books if you want. And finally, to wrap up this insanity, is number 5, the half man, half dog. This is from April 1993. I mean, it is, again, what you would expect, where it's like a human and he's in a suit, but it's not a dog head, it's just a furry face. And he's supposed to be a real person, Kent Morley, and he's being studied by the Mayo Clinic. And this guy's supposed to work as a computer programmer. So he's like sitting in an office with his dog head. There are quotes in this that say, just like other dogs, he's wary of strangers, but once he gets to know you, he's loyal, and he has a great hunting instinct. And of course, because it's Weekly World News, he got married and he wants to have kids, but they're scared. Will their kids be half dog or will they be all human? Oh my god. Now you see why I want to do multiple parts of this, because I could barely hold it together getting through this one. And there are easily dozens and dozens of more just as foolish. I will put that Google Books link. It has a search bar. You can literally type in half man, half dog, and it'll bring you to all the issues that have his stupid face on it. Oh boy. Well, let's let the good times roll. The top 5 is over. That doesn't mean the wackiness ends, because we got one more segment, and I'm going to try to explain to you all just what in the world was Gumby. We were talking earlier about the weird and wacky idea that became the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Well, 25 years before Ninja Turtles were even a thing, there was another weird acid trip of a cartoon/animated series centered around a humanoid-like piece of clay and his horse friend. And my job here with this segment is to explain to you just what in the world was Gumby. Despite getting its start in the 1950s, the character of Gumby extends all the way to recent times. People of my age and even younger should know who Gumby is. He was a simple green humanoid-type character with a slanted head, endlessly flexible. He would become a beloved children's character, but also a pioneering symbol of an entirely new animation technique. The creation of Gumby was in the early 1950s by animator Art Clokey, who was a true innovator in stop-motion animation. After studying film at the University of Southern California, Clokey created a short experimental film called Gumbasia in 1953. This featured abstract clay shapes moving rhythmically to music. It's a play on Disney's Fantasia. The film caught the attention of producer Sam Engel, who encouraged Clokey to develop a character for children's television, and from that suggestion, Gumby was born. Despite me kind of saying it seems like an acid trip, Gumby, the character, and everything about it is actually really carefully thought out and deliberate. So the green color of Gumby was chosen because Clokey saw it as neutral and symbolic of life. The wide feet that Gumby had were practical because they helped the clay figure stand during stop-motion filming. The slanted head was inspired by a photograph of Clokey's father, which I don't know what that says about what his dad looks like. His dad had a slanted head. The character of Gumby itself was partly inspired by the gingerbread man, which was suggested by Clokey's wife Ruth. And even his name came from gumbo, which, not the soup, the clay found on Clokey's grandparents' farm. Gumby's first appearance was in the mid-1950s with an early short titled Moon Trip, also known as Gumby on the Moon. His big break came when he appeared on the Howdy Doody show. And even though he got his start in the 1950s, the popularity and relevance of Gumby extended well into my Gen X territory as far as nostalgia and pop culture goes. The popularity of Gumby on Howdy Doody led to the creation of its own show, The Gumby Show. This aired on NBC. Initially, it was 25 episodes, later expanding in syndication. This show introduced key characters and expanded Gumby's world. The big thing with Gumby that I remember watching was that he could enter books and travel through time and space in there. Gumby may have been carefully curated as a character, but the storytelling was definitely surreal and weird and perfect for the time of the 1960s. Besides Gumby, he had his loyal orange pony sidekick, Pokey. There was Prickle, the yellow dinosaur with detective tendencies. There was Goo, a blue flying mermaid who can shapeshift. And later on there was Minga, who was Gumby's younger sister. She looked a lot like Gumby, except she was pink and kind of had a skirt shape with her legs. Gumby had parents, Gumbo and Gumba. And of course, he had enemies, the Blockheads. They were two mischievous red figures with cube-shaped heads. And there'd be other various one-off villains, surreal threats. The original Gumby show lasted from 1956 to 1968. In total, there were 130 episodes of The Gumby Show, all starting with some version of the Gumby theme.
Gumby! He was once a little green slab of clay. Gumby! But you should see what Gumby can do today. Gumby!
Now, Gumby isn't a superhero in the traditional sense, but he did have unique abilities, shape-shifting, stretching, like I said, traveling through books into different worlds, creative problem-solving, but he's defined by his kindness, curiosity, and optimism. So it's very much a typical children's show, children's character. Gumby gets into situations that are dangerous, but not, adult world dangerous, kids show dangerous. He solves his problem, there's a moral to the story, everyone lives happily ever after. This original Gumby show led to the rise of claymation. Art Clokey was a pioneer in this field, helping to establish the techniques that would later influence things like Wallace and Gromit, Chicken Run, Robot Chicken. Clokey's work emphasized physicality and texture, giving Gumby a tactile, almost magical quality that traditional animation couldn't replicate. One of my favorite weird shows of the late 90s, MTV's Celebrity Deathmatch. That's claymation right there. If you don't know Celebrity Deathmatch, I did a full segment on it back in episode 158. After the original Gumby show went off the air in 1968, he faded from popularity, with the irony being that Gumby came back to the forefront thanks to Eddie Murphy parodying the character on Saturday Night Live. It was in March 1982 that Eddie Murphy first played the Gumby character, where he had kind of the foam costume, but his face was exposed and it was painted green. And he portrayed Gumby as just angry, smoking a cigar with his catchphrase,
Imagine him telling me where I can park and where I cannot park. I'm Gumby, damn it! You don't talk to me that way!
In total, Eddie Murphy played Gumby on SNL 9 times. I'm not saying him doing that is what brought Gumby back to the forefront, because there were reruns that introduced him to a new generation like me, because the original Gumby was stuff that my father would have watched. So if I was over there at my Nana's house and Gumby happened to be on reruns, he'd probably put it on since he was basically always a man-child. For a lot of people of my generation, my age group, we got introduced to Gumby through the new Gumby Adventures show that started in 1988.
Gumby, he's here, and he will be sure to stay. Gumby, let's all see what magical games he can play.
The show was not a major success. It only had the one season, although it did have 49 total episodes. What's interesting is that the revival Gumby show actually included the same episodes from the 50s and 60s shows, just re-recorded. Even though the Gumby adventures didn't last very long, there was so much of a backlog of content that you could have all the reruns with Gumby. In 1995, there was Gumby the movie, which I had no idea even existed. Based on the box office receipts for it, it's obvious that no one knew it existed at the time. The film had a budget of $2.8 million. Would you like to know how much money it made at the theater? It made $57,000. It's gotta be one of the biggest box office fails in the history of movies. It's only 20% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, and it was criticized at the time because Toy Story was coming out. So that's totally new and fresh with CGI. And here's kind of claymation, which, you know, it was innovative 30, 40 years before. But I mean, honestly, even by the 80s, claymation was kind of old school. Think about how the California Raisins got really big for about 5 seconds in the 80s, and then they were gone. In recent years, it's been more just reruns of Gumby on different networks. There have been rumors of revivals of comics, of TV shows. Even though the heyday of Gumby honestly was over 40 years ago, he still became a pop culture symbol. He's been referenced and parodied across TV and film. Eddie Murphy on SNL, he's appeared on The Simpsons. Obviously, it was easy to have toys made of Gumby. I had a bendable Gumby figure, one of Pokey. I think at one point I had Gumby as a manager for my LJN WWF figures. Have Gumby managing George the Animal Steel. Millions of those Gumby figures were sold over the decades. You could get them, they were small, 3 inches tall. I'm actually surprised I never made any skits with Gumby when I had my camcorder in the 90s. Unlike many children's shows over the decades, Gumby often had deeper artistic and philosophical elements. Imagination as a limitless space, kindness and moral problem solving, and the surreal, almost dreamlike storytelling. If you've never watched a Gumby short, because the shows would be made up of a couple of shorts, 5 minutes long, all you need to do is go and watch a couple and you'll get kind of the idea of what the show is about. This is not something like you need to binge every episode from beginning to end. There is not a long through line. There is definitely something soothing about turning on a Gumby cartoon and watching him slide into a book and into this weird world. It's very symbolic, that nostalgia. To this day, Gumby still matters. He endures because he represents something rare in entertainment. Simplicity with depth, innovation with heart, childlike wonder paired with artistic ambition. It may have been a simple children's show, but it pioneered claymation, and it made that weird green slanted head humanoid character into a pop culture icon, at least for a while. Did you watch Gumby? Depending on your age, you could be anywhere. You could be in your 70s and have watched Gumby. You could show Gumby to any child and feel good about them watching it. Like, I'd love to show my youngest niece Sylvie Tom and Jerry, but I don't want her to think that she should go wailing on someone with a pipe or a frying pan. Gumby, the worst that she would do is try to dive into a book. Of course, she'd hear this and say to me, why would you think that I'd be foolish enough to dive into a book? I know, that's more me. To wrap it up, though, at a time when animation was still evolving, Gumby proved that even a simple lump of clay, called Gumbo, could become a timeless icon. But until next week, let's slide out of this book of GenX nostalgia and put a bow on episode 244 of the In My Footsteps podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for making it to the end. If you enjoy my work, and if you've made it this far, I'm hoping you do, you can become a member on Patreon for $5 a month. You can buy me a coffee. You can share my content all across social media. I've got loads of content. Literally like tens of thousands of different things. Obviously, a few hundred podcasts, many hundreds of blogs, YouTube videos, social media posts. I have 10 books. You can get them all through my website, ChristopherSutherland.com or Amazon. I am lining up more events for my latest book, In Their Footsteps, The Interesting People, Places, and Events of Cape Cod History. Next up will be June 24th at 1 p.m. at the Eldridge Library in Chatham. I do a presentation called 12 Stories for 12 Generations because I'm a 12th generation Cape Codder. It's a lot of fun if you're in the area. It'll be the first week of summer. I'm trying to cram as many of these events into the beginning of summer because the last couple of weeks of August into the beginning of September, I'll be off shooting my first feature-length film, The Cabin. It's not going to be too much longer. A few more weeks, I'm going to open up the fundraiser for it to try to raise money to get the film made. There'll be more information about that when we get closer to it. It's probably going to be the week after Memorial Day. But before I go and shoot that, before there's more book events, coming up next week is episode 245 of the podcast. We're going to do a deep dive into Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, the movie and the video game. It's going to be time for another me versus AI top 5 as we look at the top 5 worst movies that have great soundtracks. And I'm going to debut a new segment that's probably going to be a little bit free-flowing. It's going to be a look at the decade of the 90s, how it started versus how it ended, as far as pop culture and the world goes. So for this one, it's going to look at January 1st, 1990, how the world was, what was popular, trends, technology, and then we're going to juxtapose it with December 31st, 1999. I just find it interesting how much the world changes in the same decade, especially in terms of musical trends. For example, the first #1 song of 1990 was Another Day in Paradise by Phil Collins. The last #1 song of the 1990s was Smooth by Rob Thomas and Santana. It's going to be things like that. It'll make more sense next week. Happy birthday coming up later this week to my oldest nephew, Liam. He is turning 20 years old, and I am aging extra rapidly. My hair just grows more and more gray every day. I have 6 nieces and nephews, and as of next month, 4 of them will have graduated high school. Which again, I remember graduating high school, so I'm like, I don't know how in the world this has happened. That's why I do this podcast, so I can feel young along with many of you. So happy birthday to my nephew Liam. Let me know if you ever listen to this podcast. But as I said at the top of the show, it feels like spring again, so let's wrap this up. Allow you to get outside, unless you're already outside, going for a walk, listening to me, or gardening, lounging by the pool, or stuck in traffic on the way to the mall. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you have the best day, the best week. I will be back again next week to keep you draped in GenX nostalgia like a velvet robe. And until that time comes, remember, in this life, don't walk in anyone else's footsteps, create your own path, and enjoy every moment you can on this journey we call life, because you never know what tomorrow brings. Thank you all again for tuning in. This has been the In My Footsteps podcast. I am Christopher Setterland. You already knew that. And I'll talk to you all again soon.